Anyone can guess, but there must have been a tipping point why all of a sudden the president is specifically by name going after Mueller.
Yeah, and if you remember, in December, the president flatly said that he thought that Robert Mueller could be fair. There was a kind of non-aggression pact in terms of him not going after him publicly. We do know privately that he had other things to say about Mueller, but something has changed. What we know in terms of the context of where these tweets and attacks on Robert Mueller by name are coming from is that he has subpoenaed documents from the Trump Foundation related to Russia and other things, right? We don't know what those other things are. You imagine if you're President Trump, you're talking to your lawyers, you're talking to your lawyers about what Mueller is after and the scope of this investigation. You're also likely hearing from your lawyers what Bob Mueller wants to ask you in any sort of sit-down interview. Of course, his lawyers are saying they don't necessarily want him to sit down with Robert Mueller. So I think that is where all of this is coming from. There's a sort of cumulative effect at this point where this investigation not only is not going to wrap up soon, which again is different from what the president believed initially, and it seems to be inching closer and closer to the president.
Because you saw the New York Times reporting, Michael, that the special counsel's team have provided Trump's lawyers with certain topics they want to discuss for a sit-down Q&A with the President of the United States. And it seems that if they've only done that in recent days, that might have been something that caused the President to get really, really angry.
Sure, and I think Nia's got it right. You have first Ty Cobb and the other lawyers telling the President it's going to end in November, it's going to end in December, it's going to end in January.
Ty Cobb, the lawyer for the President.
Exactly. Now we're in March, and doesn't seem that we're any place near the end of it. Then, as the New York Times reports, and as you just indicate, they get a list of topics from Mueller, and those topics include the business dealings of the Trump organization. Way broader than the president had hoped for. I think he wanted a very narrow-scoped interview on obstruction, perhaps, and collusion specifically. Now they've got private dealings, which is his so-called red line, and I think it's just too much for him, and he's exploded in this Twitter tirade.
Because the president had said last summer that it would be crossing a red line if Mueller decided to go after his business dealings, as opposed to strictly what happened during the campaign, collusion, no collusion with Russia.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, those business dealings could shed a lot of light on the president's or his campaign's motivations here. We've seen several back channels being attempted to be set up with the Russians, and you have to wonder why. And the only way to fully understand what's going on here is to look at the president's business and look at the debts he may owe to Russian nationals.
You know, it's interesting that some pretty high-profile Republicans, they are warning the president, don't even think about firing Robert Mueller, even though there are a whole bunch of others, president supporters, who say, yeah, this guy is on a witch hunt, just go after him and end this whole situation.
Yeah, I mean, you have people like Lindsey Graham basically saying if he moved to fire the special counsel, it'd be the end of his presidency. Jeff Flake out of Arizona also raising similar concerns. Paul Ryan basically saying that he has faith in Mueller's investigation. But there isn't by any means any sort of chorus of Republicans in Congress raising concerns or red flags about the president's actions towards Bob Mueller. I mean, it's essentially the same people we've heard before, a very small group of people. Jeff Flake, for instance, isn't going to run for office. Again, Trey Gowdy also lodging some criticism at the president. He's not going to run for office anymore. So, yeah, there's far from a groundswell at this point in terms of focusing on the president.
I do think you perhaps reach a tipping point if the president finds somebody to fire Mueller, because Rosenstein said he will not without good cause shown.
Right.
Rachel Brand, the number 3 person, has already left the Department of Justice or is leaving the Justice Department. Now you've got the Solicitor General who may have a conflict and has to recuse himself from the deliberation. So if he finds someone to fire Mueller, then he's got to appoint a new Deputy Attorney General and make a decision about who to appoint. If he appoints somebody to replace Mueller, which he has to do under the regulations, that is seen as sort of a crony or a lackey or someone who's not going to independently investigate the Russian collusion and coordination aspect of it, then I think you've reached the tipping point, and these congressional Republicans who have been quiet have to speak out.
You know, Jennifer, I want you to listen to Trey Gowdy, the Republican congressman. He had some advice for the president and his lawyers as far as Mueller is concerned. Listen to this.
give him the time, the resources, the independence to do his job. And when you are innocent, if the allegation is collusion with the Russians and there is no evidence of that, and you're innocent of that, act like it.
You know, Trey Gowdy has a great point, but he's also not running for re-election. And I think there are quite a few Republicans who think what he thinks, but they're going to remain quiet. And I would agree it's going to take a tipping point, as Michael said. And I think if Bob Mueller is in some way fired, I think people will flood the streets and make the Women's March look like it's it was a block party. And that, I think, if and when that happens, I think then the Republicans will get the political will and understand that they're at great risk in November.
And when the president, Michael, is going after the Mueller team, he says this, he tweeted this over the weekend: why does the Mueller team have 13 hardened Democrats, some big crooked Hillary supporters, and 0 Republicans? Another Dem recently added, does anyone think this is fair? And yet there is no collusion.
It's factually incorrect, of course. Robert Mueller is a registered Republican. Andy McCabe, who was the second on the command in the FBI, is a registered Republican. The
Rod Rosenstein?
Rosenstein is a registered Republican or an appointed by a Republican. Chris Wray, the present FBI director, is a Republican. So everybody in the senior team that is overseeing the Mueller investigation, who Mueller has to go to get his mandate expanded or evaluated, are all Republicans. So I think that it's incorrect factually. And of course, these prosecutors who are registered Democrats, 9 of the 17 are registered as Democrats, they are professional prosecutors. They are not going to let their party affiliation interfere with their fact-finding mission. And so to say that because you're a registered Dem or Republican, it's going to impact your view of the evidence and the law, it just defies reality.